Hello, fellow book lovers. Welcome back to Audiobook Odyssey, your sanctuary for transformative reads. Today, we're diving deep into Thinking, Fast and Slow by Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman, a groundbreaking exploration of how our minds work, how we make decisions, and why we often get it wrong. At the core of this book is a simple yet powerful idea: we have two systems of thinking. Kahneman calls them System 1 and System 2. System 1 is fast, intuitive, and emotional. It's the part of our brain that reacts instantly, like when you swerve to avoid a car or finish the phrase bread and with butter. System 1 works automatically and effortlessly. On the other hand, System 2 is slow, deliberate, and logical. It's activated when we solve a tough math problem, plan a trip, or decide whether a complex argument makes sense. It requires attention, effort, and focus. Kahneman's central insight is that while we like to think of ourselves as rational beings, most of our judgments and decisions are driven by System 1, fast thinking. This system relies on heuristics, or mental shortcuts, that can be useful but often lead us astray. Take the availability heuristic, for instance. It's when we judge something as more likely just because it's easier to recall. For example, after watching news reports about plane crashes, people tend to overestimate the dangers of flying, even though statistically, flying is much safer than driving. The vivid images stick in our minds and distort our judgment. Then there's the anchoring effect. If someone tells you the average price of a car is $30,000, and then you see one for $25,000, you'll think it's a bargain, even if the car is only worth $20,000. The initial number anchors your thinking. Anchoring shows how System 1 can hijack even our most rational evaluations. Another powerful concept is loss aversion. Kahneman explains that we feel the pain of losing something more intensely than the pleasure of gaining the same thing. Losing 500 Indian rupees feels worse than the happiness of gaining 500 Indian rupees. This bias explains why people resist change, cling to bad investments, or reject beneficial reforms, because the potential loss looms larger than the gain. He also delves into the illusion of validity, our tendency to believe our own judgments even when evidence proves otherwise. For example, experts in finance often believe they can predict market movements, even though studies show their predictions are barely better than chance. This confidence is fed by System 1's over-reliance on coherence and patterns, even when the world is random. Kahneman shows how overconfidence, especially in fields like business, medicine, and politics, can lead to massive errors. We're often unaware of our biases and prone to think we know more than we actually do. This illusion is part of what he calls the planning fallacy. Our tendency to underestimate how long and how costly tasks will be, despite knowing that similar projects often run over budget or schedule. The book also explores the concept of substitution. When faced with a hard question, like should I invest in this company, our brain often substitutes it with an easier one, like do I like the CEO? Without realizing we've made the switch. System 1 prefers ease over accuracy. One of the most fascinating parts of the book is Kahneman's distinction between the experiencing self and the remembering self. The experiencing self lives in the present, it feels each moment as it comes. The remembering self, however, constructs the story we tell about our lives. For example, if a vacation was mostly great but ended badly, we tend to remember it negatively, because the ending colors the whole experience. Our memories, not our experiences, shape our decisions. This insight has profound implications for happiness. Kahneman suggests that we often make choices that please our remembering self rather than the experiencing self. We choose careers, partners, or lifestyles that look good in hindsight, even if they don't feel good day to day. True well-being, he argues, lies in harmonizing both selves. Throughout the book, Kahneman provides numerous real-world examples and experiments, many conducted with his longtime collaborator, Amos Tversky. These studies revolutionized psychology and gave birth to the field of behavioral economics, which challenges the traditional economic view of humans as rational actors. In the final chapters, Kahneman discusses how institutions and policies can be improved by understanding human biases. For example, automatic enrollment in retirement savings plans dramatically increases participation because it takes advantage of people's inertia. This is known as nudging, a concept popularized by another behavioral economist, Richard Thaler. So what's the big takeaway? Thinking, fast and slow, isn't just about how we think, it's about how we live. It invites us to slow down, question our instincts, and become more aware of the invisible forces shaping our thoughts. It teaches us that confidence doesn't equal accuracy, that feelings are not facts, and that being rational often requires effort, humility, and doubt. While System 1 helps us survive and act quickly, System 2 is what helps us reflect, learn, and grow. Mastering our mind means balancing both systems, trusting our intuition when it serves us, but engaging our reason when stakes are high. Thank you for listening to this summary of Thinking, Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. If you found this insight valuable, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to Audiobook Odyssey, your destination for timeless wisdom and transformative reads.